Let's get straight into it. Just living in the Middle Ages was exhausting enough, but your neighbors could still label you a witch for the most ridiculous reasons. Number 10. Birthmarks and strange marks on your skin. Picture yourself in the 15th century trying to survive plagues and taxes, and then one day you bend down to pick up a turnip or whatever. Your nosy neighbor spots a birthmark on your back, and instead of saying, "Oh, that's interesting," they scream, "Witch." Just like that, you go from a normal person to the main character in a courtroom drama. Back then, they called birthmarks the devil's mark. They believed the devil came down, signed your skin, and basically said, "Congrats, you're on the evil team now." And to prove it, witch hunters would poke the spot with a needle. If you didn't feel pain, they'd say, "See, magic made you numb." If you did feel pain and screamed, they'd say you were faking it and acting too hard. In other words, no matter what you do, you lose. In that era, a birthmark wasn't a birthmark, it was a one-way ticket to trouble. Number 9, talking to yourself or mumbling. Today, you quietly repeat things so you don't forget, and people call that focus. In the Middle Ages, the second you started muttering, your neighbors would assume you were on a hotline with invisible forces. You weren't reciting a grocery list or practicing a sentence so it comes out smooth. In their eyes, you were chanting spells, negotiating, basically bargaining with the devil for better weather. And once they believed that every bad thing that happened afterward could be pinned on you. You walk past the cowshed, mumble a few words because you're trying to remember a bread recipe. The next day, the blacksmith's cow has diarrhea, and suddenly the whole village reaches a very scientific conclusion. You curse the cow. Nobody thinks about dirty water or spoiled feed. No, it had to be your magical mumbling. Even worse, the more you explain, the more witchy you sound. You say, "I'm just repeating something," they hear, "I'm practicing a spell." Back then, talking to yourself was genuinely a dangerous hobby. Number 8. Red hair or unusual eye color. You didn't do anything wrong, you were just born a little different. But in a medieval village where everyone looks like a copy of the same person, red hair stands out like a torch in the dark. So your neighbors don't call you a rare genetic variation, they call you suspicious. People back then believed that anything outside the norm had to mean something. Red hair got labeled as the devil's touch. Unusual eyes were seen as a gaze that didn't belong to God. Basically, you haven't even opened your mouth and your appearance already testified against you. Small villages didn't have much entertainment, so judging people was basically a national sport. And when something goes wrong, they need a target to blame because saying bad luck happens is boring, but saying it's your fault feels satisfying. For example, someone's chicken randomly gets sick. Instead of thinking illness or bad food, they look at you with red hair and nod like, "Yup, it was them." You're not a witch, you're just the rare version of the gene. Number 7. Knowing herbs and mixing folk remedies. You're just boiling leaves, soaking roots, rubbing something on for stomach pain or insomnia, basically budget medicine. But your neighbors see a pot bubbling, strange smells rising, and you casually naming plants like you're reading a menu, and they don't think you're healing people. They think you're cooking magic. Back then, they didn't understand germs, didn't understand dosage, and definitely didn't understand why something invisible could make someone feel better. So anyone who knew a little more than average instantly became scary. And to make medieval logic feel complete, they'd rather call you a witch than learn science. The funny part is, the more effective you are, the more dangerous it becomes for you. You tell someone, "Drink this," and your cough will ease, and the next day they actually feel better. Instead of thanking you, they get more suspicious, like, "How did you know ahead of time?" Some places even believed witches could steal someone's sickness and use it to make medicine, like stealing health through the air. The twist is, you become the most useful person in the village and also the easiest person to hate. Being a good healer in the Middle Ages was basically a high-risk career. Number 6. Being left-handed. You just write with your left hand, hold a knife with your left hand, do everything with your left hand, that's it. But in the Middle Ages, people looked at you, like you just admitted, you were the devil's sidekick. Because in their minds, the left hand wasn't just the other hand. The left hand was the devil's hand. Left meant crooked, crooked meant dangerous, and dangerous meant put you on trial. The result was that anything you said automatically lost value. You stand in court and say, "I'm innocent," and they hear the devil is speaking through them. In some places, left-handed people were forced to swear oaths in special ways because they believed your promises could bend as easily as your grip on a pen. And the wild detail is that many left-handed kids were forced to train their right hand not because it looked nicer, but because people believed switching hands could literally pull you off the dark path. The funniest part is you're just trying to write neatly, and they look at your handwriting and think it's devil script. In the Middle Ages, being left-handed wasn't a personality trait, it was a problem. Number 5, yawning. You're standing in the market or worse in church and you yawn because you didn't sleep enough. Normally, that's just your body saying, I'm tired. But in the Middle Ages, opening your mouth that wide was basically you unlocking the front door for the devil to walk in. They believed that when you yawn, your soul can slip out for a split second, and if your soul steps out, guess who can slide in? Yep, the devil, like a landlord, swap in 1 second. And the reason they believe this is wild, but kind of understandable for that time. During plagues, people noticed the dying often yawned a lot, sighed, looked exhausted, so they connected the dots and decided yawning meant death was knocking. Their defense plan sounded like spiritual home security. Every time you yawned, you were supposed to make the sign of the cross in front of your mouth, like locking the door so your soul doesn't get stolen. If a kid yawned, adults had to do it for them because babies didn't know how to lock the door yet. You yawn because you're sleepy, they think you're renting out a room to the devil. Number 4. Owning a cat, especially a black cat. You keep a cat to catch mice, protect your grain, and stop your house from turning into a 5-star hotel for rodents. But in the Middle Ages, if your neighbors saw you holding a black cat, they didn't think it was cute. They thought you just hired an assistant from hell. The reasons are peak medieval logic. Cats are active at night, they move silently like ghosts, they love sitting in dark corners, and they stare at you like they're grading your morals. That was enough to label them the devil's sidekick. And it gets weirder. People also believed witches could turn into cats to sneak out and do evil stuff, or that cats were messengers between you and dark forces. In other words, the cat could literally just breathe and people would assume it had a mission. The irony is, cats were genuinely useful. Fewer mice meant lower disease risk. But who needs logic when you've got superstition? You keep a cat to help the village, and the village thinks you're building a hotline to hell. Every meow becomes hell code, and every purr sounds like a spell. Number 3, being too good at brewing beer. Today, if you make great beer, you're a craft genius. You open a shop, you sell merch. In the Middle Ages, if your beer was too good and the whole village loved it, that's exactly when your problem started. Because people didn't think you were skilled, they thought you were cheating with magic. The drama is simple. They drink your beer, compliment you, then go home and look at their own brew like dishwater. Then comes jealousy. Jealousy turns into rumors. Rumors turn into witch faster than fermentation. And the extra spicy detail is that brewing was often done by women back then, which made it even easier to target you, especially if you sold better than others. Even the visuals worked against you. You've got a big pot, a long stirring stick, and a couple cats around to keep mice away from the grain. Congrats, that's the witch kit in real life. The pot looks like a poison cauldron, the stirring stick becomes a broom, and the cats. Everyone already decided. Meanwhile, the truth is, you're not chanting anything. You just control temperature, keep things clean, and follow a solid process. But back then, people didn't understand fermentation, so they needed an easier answer. You make good beer, they assume you hired the devil as your bartender. Number 2, being too good at making cheese. You live in a village where everyone makes cheese, and everyone's cheese has its own personality. Dave's cheese is soft like mud. Betty's is so hard it could replace bricks. And yours is always smooth, fragrant, perfect, like it was made for royalty. And that's the problem. Back then, they didn't understand bacteria temperature or aging time. They just saw you win the cheese game every single time without failing once. In their minds, there's no way you're just doing the process correctly. It has to be magic. It has to be a dark secret. Some places even believed witches could suck the goodness out of other people's cheese and transfer it into their own, like stealing quality, through the air. And here's the extra weird part. If someone's milk went bad or wouldn't curdle, they might claim you hexed it so their milk betrayed them. You're standing there holding a perfect piece of cheese and they're looking at you like you stole the flavor. The truth is, you didn't steal anything, you just didn't mess it up. Number 1, double-yolk eggs. You're just raising chickens, feeding them properly, and one day your hen lays an egg with 2 yolks. Today you'd laugh and call it a bonus double protein, your breakfast just leveled up. But in the Middle Ages, anything unusual was automatically a bad omen, and a bad omen obviously needed a culprit, and the most convenient culprit was you. They wouldn't think sometimes biology does weird stuff. No, they'd go full creative mode. Either you curse the chickens, or you're using these strange eggs for rituals like brewing spells, telling fortunes, or doing something we should not ask follow-up questions about. And the wild detail is that some people believed unusual eggs were dark forces sending signals like the devil had nothing better to do than text the village using egg yolks. So you're about to fry an egg and your neighbors are about to call a priest. Today it's bonus protein. Back then it was bonus trouble. That's all for today. I'll make more videos like this, so subscribe if you want to catch the next episode.